the Manics are in, I have to play that song. It's sort of a tradition. Because Nicky White's mum sent me that. Said, I heard you like the song, here, have a signed copy. I know I've told the story before, but I just like it, and it's also fabulous.
My mum will be smiling now back in Wales.
We'll talk to the Manics in just a moment. So the People's Verdict is in on tonight's confession from Sandra, who had it was a pushy sister and a high-achieving sister, and we kept on going on about how fabulously high-achieving all the children were. Anyway, it ended up, for complicated reasons, with a Dennis Leary tape being sent to some vulnerable old people. Anyway, Simon, confession, utterly forgiven. I have had my fill of parents whose offspring have gone to Oxford or Cambridge and who follow this with, and where did your son go? Now, that's Tony from, and I've forgotten how I've been told to pronounce it, so I'm just going to get... Come on, James, you tell me.
Let's go. You've written all over it. Pempeda Hoyle.
Thank you very much. Well, I tried to write it down phonetically, but the fact that you were struggling gave me reassurance. Forgiven, Simon. I think they should have actually forwarded the tape to the grandparents in the first place. That would have been fine, says Anne. Martin in St Albans, confession is forgiven. Nobody likes a pushy parent, but absolutely not forgiven because Dennis Leary stole Bill Hicks's whole act.
No.
Ooh. Well, he did, but it was a light version of it.
Yeah. I'd go against that.
Would you?
Yeah.
Would you go? Well, we could talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for half an hour.
What was the connection then between them then, James, would you say?
Well, a lot of it was based around smoking.
Yes. No, that's true.
That was the big thing. And it was just being misanthropic to Bill was misanthropic to the highest degree, and then just Dennis was a bit like
There are clear parallels.
Very good, very good. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about Dennis Leary because we're delighted to have James D. Bradfield and Nicky White here because Manic Street Preachers album is kind of comparatively brand new and it's futurology. Gentlemen, very good to see you again. How are you keeping?
Hello, how are you doing?
We're very well. Lovely to be back.
Thank you for keeping the pronunciation helpful, and thank you for the stand-up comedy.
Sorry, I interrupted rudely. Then it was my place to say anything.
No. It absolutely is. You're our guest, and you're very welcome. You're very welcome to say. You talk about. I almost said almost anything, but that's not true. No. so now look, the album is futurology, and every time there's a new Manics record. I do remember the conversation that we had where it's a few albums ago, where you said we're tempted to do our next album something really difficult for radio, just sort of noisy and thrashy. And when this arrived, thinking, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the unplayable Manics record. But it's not. It's stuff full of fantastic songs. So tell us about futurology then. What do we need to know about it?
I think it's just an album bursting with ideas. I guess we were, a lot of it was done in Berlin. We were listening to lots of German music. I was getting obsessed with lots of German and Russian art. And we wanted to do, in inverted commas, a krautrock record, I guess, really. And there's no better place to soak up all those influences than Berlin itself. And
these are the Hansa studios.
Indeed,
So
yes.
what difference does a completely different recording studio make to the sound of a record?
I think there is a kind of willful romanticising within rock and roll myth that you think you step into these buildings and you can soak up the history, and sometimes that's it's not the case. But I think with Hansa, you go there and you do see from the window from which Iggy Pop and David Bowie saw the Berlin Wall, and they put the speakers in the window and they blasted the Eastern Berlin kind of guards with their music and stuff, and you see all that, and you do feel it at Hansa, I suppose. And I suppose you just buy into it. As soon as you walk through the door, there is a really kind of old Art Nouveau vibe about the building and the reception. And if you're as into rock and roll myth as we are, it's easy to buy into it as soon as you walk into the building. It does. You do feel the kind of the previous work of the place.
So what were the ideas, Nicky? You said it's an album bursting full of ideas. What were the ideas?
Lots of futurism, lots of Die Brücke movement, which is an artistic movement in Germany, which a lot ended up in Berlin, which means the bridge. And there's lots of that idea.
So is that the Walk Me to the Bridge reference?
And Walk Me to the Bridge. We were driving from Sweden to Denmark, and if anyone's crossed that Öresund Bridge, it's just so inspirational, and architecture, movement, craft work, Achtung Baby, just a myriad of kind of European influences. I think Rewind, the film, was really internal, quite Welsh in its melancholy, but this was very much outward looking, sense of movement, just bursting with life, really, and the fact it got a number 2, just kind of justified our faith in that you can really explore ideas on a record and people can still like it.
It's interesting you mentioned Achtung Baby because you played the new U2 song "Miracle of Joey Ramone" just a few moments ago, and Matt had been saying how the last U2 album that he really loved was Acton Bay, and that album was full of noises, Germanic sounds. And when the Fly first turned up, because when I was at Radio One, you go to the playlist and they put on the Fly, and everyone goes, "What the heck is this?" We were expecting something like the Josh Mitchell. Where do these noises come from? And the answer is the Hansa Studios in Germany.
Yeah, and a kind of, if there's something inside you that you just want to explore, a different side of yourself, which we've always loved doing. And this side, just came barnstorming with millions of ideas from all of us, really. Sean was just walking around Berlin with his iPhone recording German people, German sounds, and then that would filter into the record as well, sampling stuff. So the whole experience really just restored our faith in us to kind of reinvent ourselves.
And just filtering through other people's ideas into a record. And, the album, I think Nick said earlier, the album's full of other people's ideas that we're kind of investigating and exploring kind of thing.
Well, I'm going to play Futurology, play the title track. And the line, "We'll come back one day, we never really went away." So is this you?
It's us as well.
Is this about you?
And the kind of just the notion that there's some sort of romantic spirit in rock music that, will always return at some point.
Futurology, Manic Street Preachers.
Radio 6 Music.
It's 90 minutes past 6, Radio 2 with the Manics here. James and Nicky, anyway, as is traditional. Some questions from listeners. Here's a nice one. Oliver Harper in Sevenoaks. Simon, I'm 13 and I've been getting into the Manics recently. I even asked my local CD shop to stay open for a few minutes yesterday just so I could buy Futurology. Brilliant. I think the Manics are definitely one of the last great bands of all time. Okay.
That's so sweet, isn't it?
That's lovely.
What were you thinking at 13, eh? What would you have
I was thinking about getting the next Whitesnake album, I think.
And anyway, Oliver says, I was just wondering which albums are the band's favourites. Now, I'm not sure whether he means of your own or generally, so why don't you answer both?
Okay, kind of probably... Oh my God, that's just... they should have given us one, haven't they?
Definitely The Clash, London Calling, Sex Pistols, Nevermind, Nirvana, In Utero, Aftermath, Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go Exile Main Street, Texas Nation Millions, Public Enemy, and I think I'll go Combat Rock by The Clash.
Okay. Actually. And if you had to, just in case he means your own favourite records.
I think obviously everything must go because it was just so out of the box successful. If you want a pop-up museum, then maybe the Holy Bible. And if you want some kind of just full-on blasting rock and roll, some Send Away the Tigers maybe.
Very fantastically exciting at that age to then think, hang on, this stuff is quite a way back. A lot of it was before I was born, but I'm just going to go and discover.
Well, that's kind of weird because that's what happened to us. I mean, we were massive Clash fans and we never had a chance of seeing them live because by the time we got into the Clash, they'd finished. Same with the Sex Pistols, So it's kind of following the route that we kind of went down. We had to look into the past to find inspiration when we were young.
One of the greatest thrills you still get as a band is going into a record shop and seeing your rack of your history. You're seeing 12...
Getting more difficult.
It is.
Not with your history, but it's getting more difficult to find a record shop that might actually have a rack of anything.
It is, but I remember dipping back into Bruce Springsteen, going back and finding the river and falling in love with our record, and it's just such a magical experience. And luckily for us, we still get kids like that. It's why our catalogue sells and why we still... Because you always need new fans to kind of... get a bit of new blood into you.
Well, you got one there. That's Oliver. Would you ever give your music away, by the way? Would you ever sort of do either a Radiohead or a U2, whereby you wake up and you've been given the record whether you want it or not?
I think there's a kind of theory that once you give away something for free, that it's kind of devalued to a certain degree. I think that's floating around in my head as a notion. So I don't know. That's
I can't. I'd like to think not really, because we think music is so precious to us. I still go out and spend lots of my money buying records all the time, and I actually enjoy it and I get a real thrill out of it. So
I haven't changed on that level. I was spending all my I was a barman and a paper boy. Up until I was like 20, and I was still, spending all that money on records or instruments, and I'm still the same now. I go to Spiller's record shop in Cardiff. And I'm that quintessential over 40 bloke. I kind of, buy 4 albums a month kind of thing.
A question from Dr. Maplewood. A number of people asking this, and I know you've tackled this subject recently as well, and you mentioned the Holy Bible. Nick, 20 years old now. He says, any news on the possibility of an anniversary tour? Is that going to happen?
Yes, I mean, we've got to decide soon. So there's deadlines looming. So one way or another, if it's a yes, no, or no vote, all will be revealed next.
So what are the issues there? What are you trying to?
I think you just got to feel like you can do the whole thing justice. This Holy Bible is such an intense little tableau of music and ideas that you got to make sure that you can actually come back and achieve the same intensity to actually play those songs. It's like the old Gary McAllister thing. You got to make sure that you can still play at the top level, and end your career at the top, kind of thing. And he did. So hopefully we can do that justice.
Sam Turner and Jill and a whole bunch of people want to know about any gigs, the next gigs, whether you're going to go back to America, and what permutations of live performances can you tell us about?
Kindly, strangely enough, we never had the chance to do the Holy Bible in America. So if we do it in the UK, we may well take it to America. We've very rarely toured America, full stop. So if it all comes together and we feel confident, like I said, everything will be revealed next week, one way or the other, because we need to book the shows and start practicing.
So it's still an ongoing band conversation?
Well,
then?
we've probably got to make a decision probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
So it's still an ongoing band decision then?
Yes.
It is. Democracy is in play.
Does everyone have one vote?
Yeah.
He
Yes.
kind of gets 2 votes sometimes.
Paul Strickland, what's your favourite place to play live?
Love Wolverhampton Civic Hall.
Yeah.
It just has those rock and roll ley lines that pass through the venue. You never do a bad gig there.
What's a rock and roll ley line?
It's just something that you just actually feel that as soon as you're there, everything is going to be okay. And it's that thing with just the crowd are always there, bang on time. They're always down the front, all waiting. Same with Glasgow Barrowlands. That's got ley lines just running all the way through it. You just never have a bad gig there.
I think Brixton Academy's become that for us as well. The last few shows we've done there have been out of this world.
This from Dirk, who says, what made James decide to enunciate so clearly on this new album? It's good to hear the words at last.
It took me 12 albums. 12 albums. Thank you. At least somebody gets my striving.
Is there a difference? I mean, are you aware of that?
I think Richey and Nick used to write the lyrics together, and Richey used to cram so many words in there, and Nick's words are sometimes easy to sing. So it's become easier, I think.
I think on this record he is slightly more considered, though. He's singing just kind of more calmly, just more confident. I don't know. There's something in the diction, because there's some quite hard kind of Russian pronunciations going on and stuff, and there is a real clarity as well to the mix into it.
I used to love that challenge of singing the stuff in the Holy Bible, because there was so much there, and it was like a physical challenge. It was almost like a sporting event. But as you get older, you start to realise your lung capacity isn't quite there. So I think Nick's taking that into consideration when he's writing the lyrics.
And John Henderson, any more banking, merger and acquisition advice after NatWest, Barclays, Midlands, Lloyds was predicted 15 years before the actual event?
Yeah, I mean, people used to laugh at that song, but it was...
Just explain the song?
Well, the key line in it is Black Horse Apocalypse, death sanitized through credit. So it kind of predicted the banking collapse. And like you said, acquisitions and mergers people used to really laugh because the chorus is saying all those banks together crammed in.
NatWest, Barclays, Midlands, Lloyds.
The most un-rock and roll chorus ever.
So the album Futurology, just tell us about because we have there's some guest vocalists appearing on this. Just to explain just a little bit more about the record.
Yeah, we've been really blessed over the last few records, really, and on this one, Green Gartside from Scritti Politti, who does an amazing duet with James, Between the Clock and the Bed. Georgia Ruth, who plays harp and sings on Divine Youth, who's kind of celestial and pristine and beautiful. And she's a great artist in her own right as well. Kian from Super Furries played some keyboards and sounds. And
Nina Hoss,
yes,
played on Europa Get Durch Me, and she's in the new
Seymour Hoffman film.
Seymour Hoffman film at the moment. So she's a great singer and a great actress.
Okay, so and just to wrap up, then the answer to the questions about live concerts and the answer to the questions about the Holy Bible. Basically, stay tuned, because you're going to have a beer tonight. and then
there's
will
gonna-
use his
there's gonna
4
be a-
votes,
It'll be a Nicky White 3-line whip.
and it'll all be decided.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate you coming in.
That's
Thank
Always a
you.
pleasure. Cheers.